Hello, and welcome back to Ruben Uncut. Today, because I had struggled to even remotely think of something I wanted to talk about, I kind of wanted to talk about the Naya Rychek thing. Is that her name? Naya Rychek? I don't know, the libs of TikTok bitch. I wanted to talk about her because of her ridiculous freaking interview she recently had that made her appear to be just the dumbest person. But that would take a lot more effort, and I got to get this thing out by a certain time. And I'm recording this day of, which I don't like to do anymore because it's so much more work. But anyways, so today I'm taking a political compass test. Why? Because it's the thing people do. Now I'm taking this at politicalcompasstest.org. Now I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure this is the group. I'm pretty sure this is the organization that's been accused of, just trying to convince everyone they're a libertarian. But yeah, no, before we get into it, I will be drinking limoncello LaCroix. It's not a sponsor. Limoncello, I just felt like pointing out, is the only flavor of sparkling water that tastes like a thing. Yeah, it's hard to get away from the lemon taste of that, which, still makes it better than just tasting like fizziness. But let's get down to a political compass test. For those not familiar with a political compass test is something you take to sort of give you an idea of where you align on a political spectrum. That being said, the organization that does these has been accused of, just trying to convince everyone that they are a libertarian, which it probably won't come up as for me, but, let's see how it goes. Before taking the test, please note that this isn't a survey, and these aren't questions. They're propositions. Really, I've never wanted to Google the definition of proposition more, but let's move along. To question the logic of individual ones that irritate you is to miss the point. Some propositions are extreme and some are moderate. That's how we can show you whether you lean towards extremism or moderation on the compass. Your responses should not be overthought. Some of them are intentionally vague. Their purpose is to trigger reactions in the mind, measuring feelings and prejudice rather than detailed opinions on policy. I wonder if they added this to the test after Ben Shapiro did his incredibly overwrought video of him taking this, where he second guessed every single question on the thing.
Category. I mean, that's obviously where I am. I think the premises of the questions are incredibly stupid. So let's just jump right in. Question number one. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Did Bernie Sanders write this question? What a stupid ass question. Seriously.
But let's get down to it. First, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. I will say that I agree with that. That being said, I don't know what this one actually tells us. But like it said, don't question it. So I won't. But I am going to go with the agree on that one. All right. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. No. I'm just gonna say it. I sometimes you got to disagree with your country. Sometimes you got to disagree with your country. If my country was doing any of the shit that Russia is currently doing to Ukraine, I would strongly criticize my country for doing it. Always taking in those jabs at Russia, Ruben. Keep sticking it to him. All right. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I mean, okay, so there is, Now this one tricks me up a little bit, and it says not to overthink this, but like, so the thing is that in my mind, like, honestly, my immediate response is to agree, because being proud of being an American, it's not actually a choice you made unless you immigrated here. But if you were born here, you just are. Now, that being said, I do believe in the concept of being proud or unproud of my country based on its actions, which this does not technically cancel out. So I'm a little bit on the middle on this one. I wish there was neither agree nor disagree. I'm still gonna go with agree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Oh man, I'm gonna go with strongly disagree. Because to do anything else would be to launch myself into biological essentialism, and I'm not doing that because that's the path to racism. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Actually, strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. I actually think that is a huge mistake I think people make. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. With the current international laws that I'm aware of, I'm going to go with disagree. Yeah, no, I disagree with that. Actually, no, I'll go strongly disagree. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I'm torn on this because conceptually, entertainment and education are meant to go together. At least according to the ancient Greeks. The purpose of theater was to both entertain and educate, which I agree with. You know what? I'm going to disagree. Not strongly disagree, but disagree. Now the economy. We're talking attitudes here, not FTSE index. Okay, fair enough. Most people wouldn't be able to comment on that anyways. All right. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. I think it kind of depends on what country you're in, but yeah, no, I'm going to agree on that. Actually, you know what? We strongly agree. Because nationality is really a way of making us look outside of ourselves and not at ourselves. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I don't agree with that. I'm going to go disagree. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulations. Strongly agree. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Strongly agree. I strongly agree with both Karl Marx and the Bible on this one. The freer the market, the freer the people. If that had ever existed, maybe I'd agree with it. But generally speaking, no. While I do actually support market-based economics to a degree, I highly disagree with this. Because ultimately, the people interact with the market. The market isn't actually the people. And if the market becomes the people, you need to ask yourself, why are we selling the people? / why is there a demand for people? It's a sad reflection of our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. So this one I'm torn a little bit on. Allow me to explain why. I am ultimately going to agree with it, but I am torn on it a little bit because the reality is that the bottling of water was something that came about due to safety, and it's becoming a consumer product has more to do with the expansion of the market and less to do with water itself. Now, a major problem, of course, is that companies like the Nestle Corporation are out here just stealing people's water and then selling it back to them, which is a huge problem. But I live in the United States of America, where most of the water that comes in, where a lot of the water that comes into our houses free is full of bullshit like lead and other chemicals that don't belong in our water because we don't keep it clean enough. So ultimately, filters and bottled water have a purpose in my society. So it's frustrating. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Actually, I agree with this. It seems to cause nothing but problems. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't strongly agree with it because the reality is that having money in a consumer-based society allows you to contribute to the society via the power of purchasing, which continues to move the society along. In fairness, though, this person could have a job that gave them money that actually allowed their job and their money to contribute to society. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I actually don't. I want to say I agree with this, but but I don't generally support protectionism, but I do understand how it might at some point be necessary, but I'm going to go with disagree. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver profits to its shareholders. Strongly disagree. That's what's wrong with the world. That's literally what's wrong with the world. Oh no, the people who run everything shouldn't care about any level of morality, decency, or human rights. Their only concern should be money. Do you even hear yourselves? The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. Strongly. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Fuck you. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. Your right to be alive should be based on your money. Almost doing a Jordan Peterson voice there. Okay. Governments should penalize business that mislead the public. Yeah, no, actually, strongly agree. Companies that lie to the public are a threat to society. So yeah, fuck those people. Like I can't even what? Like it's not even it's not even asking me did they make a mistake. Should companies that make mistakes be penalized? It's companies that mislead the public. Strongly agree. They should be penalized as penal as possible. Genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. As much as I believe that the free market is kind of a myth, this is actually 100% true. Once a monopoly exists, it's no longer a free market. Now you have one company that dominates an area and market. It's no longer free. So yeah, no, in a world where monopolies come to exist, it's not a free market, or the market is no longer free, depending on how you want to look at it. Let's take a look at some of your personal social values. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. I'm going to disagree with that. There are societal reasons why I would support abortions. Believe it or not, some people shouldn't be parents. Does that mean that they should? Does that mean abortion is better than them giving the child up for adoption? Well, I mean, we have quite a full foster system already, so you tell me. All authority should be questioned. I technically agree with this. Although we are in a period of history where it does feel like people are overcorrecting for this concept and questioning. So like the problem is we don't, while all authority should be questioned, like the average individual doesn't necessarily have the perspective, information, knowledge, or intelligence to question all authorities. Like you're not a doctor. And often, a lot of times when we question authorities, we're actually asking questions that were already asked 100 times before us, and we just don't have access to the answers. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Disagree. Disagree. Eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Also, I don't think it actually leads to anything. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I disagree with that. If you allow the free market to dictate art, you will be left in a society that has nothing but the most meaningless pornographic junk food to just shove into your mouth and eyeballs and brain. Should schools not make classroom attendance compulsory? That's a thing I've never actually thought about. I mean, I don't actually know. I've never thought about this. Not actually sure what it means. But I'm going to go with agree. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. I don't see a societal advantage to this. It's more of like a comfort zone thing for people who are weak. Good parents sometimes spank their children. This one's tough. And the reason this one is tough is because spanking is something that is societally built into people. It's technically not, all the science currently indicates that it's bullshit, and not good for your, and not actually helpful. That's what all basic psychological studies on spanking have indicated, that the way it works is through imposing post-traumatic stress on your child, which actually temporarily inhibits their IQ. A lot of children, it doesn't, if your spanking is not causing this level of psychological distress, it will not work. Children with various mental disorders, disabilities, neurodivergencies are typically not effectively taught this way, especially if you have a child with ODD or obstinance defiance disorder. This is going to do nothing, like literally nothing. That being said, it's so culturally built into our society, it is very possible for there to be parents who indulge in this type of thing, who still have many other good qualities of being a parent, who just have not evolved past this or are not aware of how the science actually tells us that this works. I'm still going to go with disagree, but not strongly disagree, because philosophically, I don't agree. But I do believe that there are parents who spank who can still be good parents, provided, like what their other parental qualities are. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Unfortunately, this is true. This is true. I'm sorry, but that is natural. Like, whether it's good or bad is a different question. But you know what? We're going to strongly agree. I'm not saying I think children should. In fact, there are probably many secrets that children are keeping from their parents that they shouldn't be. But it is natural. So I don't know if it's meant to be worded that way. Like, the way this specific question is worded doesn't tell me if this is a good or bad thing. That almost makes me want to drop it down to agree instead of strongly agree, because the thing is it is natural. Like, tell me, like, if you, like, I'm on the spectrum and I still don't tell my parents everything, which is hard for me because I just sort of blurred things out sometimes. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. We don't even have to talk about that one. The prime function of schooling should be to equip future generations to find a job. Actually disagree. The primary function of education should be to make more well-rounded, intelligent, thoughtful children and adults who are better capable of existing in society with more amounts of information. So yeah, no, I actually disagree with that. That is the very capitalist reason for education, though. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Disagree. Why? Because I don't believe in eugenics. But also because ultimately it's their choice. Their choice if they're going to do this. There are plenty of people with disabilities who don't want to reproduce. There are plenty of people with disabilities who would love nothing more than to have a family. And also, like, people who are anti-abortion would be quick to talk to you about, like, oh, but they might not get the inheritable thing. Now, there are some pretty terrible inheritable things, like degenerative diseases that basically trap you in your body and cause you to die slowly. Now, if you had one of those diseases, I would 100% support you in a life of abstinence or getting a vasectomy or whatnot, because I would totally understand that. But to actively take the right away from everyone based on this is eugenics, and I don't support that. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Disagree. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not one of these liberals is going to tell you that discipline is not a thing you don't need to learn. But the reality is that the only true discipline is internal discipline, self-discipline. The reality is that outside discipline, while part of society and something one does need to learn to live with, ultimately does come with some caveats. For starters, if we're going to question all authority, that means we also need to question discipline. The other reality is that when a person is punished for something, that punishment is only really as effective as the person believes they deserve to be punished. Otherwise, everyone who went to jail would be like, I'm sorry. But many criminals express no remorse. Why? Because they don't feel they deserve to be punished. This is also the reason that many children can be punished over and over and over again, and they never seem to pick up on the discipline. It's because ultimately they think their parents are full of shit, or they have obstinate defiance disorder. They have obstinate defiance disorder. Good luck. Good luck with that. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. I mean, I agree with that. And the reason I agree with that is because when we actually like go through like societies, are there societies that are more technologically or culturally advanced? Yeah. However, it's worth noting these things don't always line up with each other. Native Americans, many Native American tribes, because guess what? Fun fact, white people, there were a bunch of different Native American tribes, and they all had dramatic, and many of them had very dramatically different cultures, some of whom we would look at as more civilized or less civilized by today's standards. There were eventually people who were like, there were essentially Native Americans who were like Vikings on horseback instead of boats. And then there were Native Americans who were basically like egalitarian, perfect utopia society communists, who would basically just share everything and make sure everyone inside the tribe was taken care of. And there's a wide spectrum of that. And also, like Native Americans, even though they weren't technologically advanced, also created essentially the formats for democracy that we would eventually take over. The bicameral chambers we have in our of Congress and the Senate is actually based on concepts we took from Native American governmental bodies. And actually, there were many Native American tribes were actually very well organized societally. They just, didn't have guns yet. But also, very civilized societies, or societies we think of as civilized by today's standards, also act in aggressive war crime type behavior. Look at Canadians. We all talk about how nice they are, but that's because at a certain point, Canadians were like, oh, people think we're assholes because of all that fucked up shit we did during World War I and II to our prisoners. Oh, it's wrong to give prisoners nail bombs that they think are food? Oh, my bad. Sorry, Canada. Yeah, that was fucked up. And people look at you as civilized. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let's move along. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Mostly I agree with this, but there is a level at which we're describing a society without free will. But the world is full of people who leech off of society, and no, I don't mean people on welfare. I mean corporations. When you are troubled, it is better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I'm going to let you on a secret. As someone who has suffered from mental problems throughout my life, this only works for so long. There are times in your life where you're going to have to try to do this. I do this semi-frequently, but here's the reality. What this actually describes is a mode of living where you are actively distracting yourself from the problem and not actually solving it. So while there definitely will be times in your life where the best thing for you to do is to keep your head down, think about something else, and keep moving until you get to a better place, the reality is that as a sustained survival mechanism, this will result in you living in a house you rent from your parents, sitting on a couch playing a lot of video games when you really should be looking at advancing yourself in society. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. All the data says that this is wrong. Actually, hold on. It specifies first-generation immigrants. I'm going to go with disagree instead of strongly disagree because the data is more inclusive, does imply that it's actually the second and third generation that integrate better. But also, if the first generation people are like children when they come here, they will ultimately integrate very well. It's really just old people who have trouble integrating. What's good for the most successful corporation is ultimately always good for all of us. That's a fake laugh. But the point stands. That's the stupidest thing I've ever read. If you agree with this, you are legit stupid. I mean, was it good for all of us that IBM sold those punch cards to Nazis so that they could track the Jews? It was good for IBM, made them tons of money. But it sure wasn't good for all of us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, corporations can do fucked up shit for money. No broadcasting institution, however independent, no broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I disagree to this to an extent. So, like, but in fairness, part of the reason I disagree with this to an extent is because I live in America, where places like NPR and PBS do receive government funding, but the vast majority of their funding comes from, you know, private entities and people who call in to donate money. And the thing is that actually when you compare America's public media, as in NPR, PBS, to foreign public media, it's very clear that we actually have the most free public media. And I'm not saying that, like, they don't ever pull their punches or whatnot. I mean, sometimes you listen to NPR and you're like, this seems very, very left. But at the same time, it's like, oh, but no, they fully endorse capitalism. They're fully endorsing it. Oh, it's liberal. It's just neoliberal, people. And the reality is that PBS and NPR are fairly consistent along these lines. It's not like in Britain where the BBC, like, you can tell who's in control of the government because the politics presented on the BBC sort of shift. So I disagree, but I also understand the problem, so I'm not going to strongly disagree. That's number 4, how you see the wider society. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Yeah. Although I've become less gung-ho on this. I mean, to be fair, Edward Snowden did show they were spying on us, so the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Very few Americans are ever actually punished using these systems that are in place, so it's harder for me to strongly agree with it. Of course, you know, except for Edward Snowden. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in the democratic political system. I disagree. I personally support the concept of abolishing political parties and forcing people to run as individuals. Now, I understand that that's not going to be popular, and it's debatable how possible it even is. But maybe I disagree with this because I don't actually know how a one-party system would work, and I know that if that one-party system were the Republicans, I don't think it'd be very good for us. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need be worried. Honestly, this highly depends on what kind of country you're in, and what that country has decided is wrongdoing. I'm going to put disagree. Death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Disagree. Ultimately, I don't support the death penalty, although I would be open to a system where the world's worst criminals could option to be killed. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I don't think that sounds very civilized. That's also like the definition of right wing. This one right here, this question is the definition of right wing. The further towards the more you agree with this question, the more right wing you are. Don't agree with this. I'm an American. I believe in democracy. I believe in equality. This is horseshit. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything, it shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. Look, I'm not a big abstract art person. I actually am not. But, like, I studied art enough in college to understand why abstract art exists and what its purpose is. That being said, societal or socially relevant art is better. During the 1960s, the CIA tried to put money into abstract art because they wanted to promote art that did not have any social messages. That's right. The CIA is actually anti-woke messaging. Because of course they would be, you idiots. They're part of the oppressive systems. Of course they're anti-woke. Don't be fucking stupid. Sorry. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. That's just your feelings, people. You want people to hurt because they hurt other people. In reality, for a functional society, we're better off rehabilitating people. And let me be clear, I'm not saying there shouldn't be accountability, but rehabilitation is part of accountability. It is a waste of time to try and rehabilitate some criminals. Now, this is going to contrast with what I just put, but this is actually an agree. Similar, not all criminals can be rehabilitated. Not all criminals will want to be rehabilitated. I do believe that as many criminals as possible should be rehabilitated, but you know, there are exceptions, like serial killers. Should serial killers be killed in prison? I think it's letting them off easy, to be honest. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. Eat a dick. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Disagree. Look, being a mother's complicated. I'm not here to judge mothers. The reality is also, like, if they're a single mother household, this is not a choice. Also, I'm pro stay-at-home dad. I have major stay-at-home dad energy. I would stay-at-home dad all day fucking long at this point in my life. Why? Oh, it's very easy. I'd stay at home all day. Then at night, I'd go do improv. And then I'd come home. And then also, while the kids are napping or whatever, record my podcast. Seems like a great life to me. Stay-at-home dad, keep doing improv, keep doing my podcast, get to see the kids all the time. I would stay-at-home dad like crazy. So I disagree with this. I think dads can totally fulfill this position. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warning of climate science that growth is detrimental to our efforts to curb global warming. I mean, I agree with this. I mean, it's a little bit vague, and not all types of growth are necessarily connected, but a number of the major industries that exist today that we make our money off of, 100%. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Unfortunately, I agree with this. My inner anarchist doesn't want to agree with this, but the reality is that being anti-establishment for the purposes of being anti-establishment is not a real position. If you hate the establishment, that's great. Get in line. What are your actual beliefs, though? Why do you hate the establishment? What does the establishment do that you object to? Just being anti-establishment doesn't mean anything because establishments are not the same. Each establishment is going to have its own type of authority, its own types of premises, morals, and beliefs. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be terrible. It's not an actual position to just be like, oh, I don't like the establishment, man. I was trying to keep me down. Okay, how are they trying to keep you down? Well, Obama, shut up. What I'm saying is it's not enough to disagree with the establishment. You also have to, have reasons you disagree with the establishment. All right, if you got through that, okay, you'll find these propositions on religion a breeze. I feel like it says a lot. There's even questions about religion, but let's move along. Astrology accurately explains many things. Do I want to answer this honestly, or do I want to get laid? We'll just go with disagree. Ruben thereby signed himself to not getting laid. This is one episode I will not be showing to women who I would like to date. Unless they're anti-astrology ladies. You cannot be moral without being religious. Disagree. We're way past that, people. I can understand why that was at one point a societal belief, but that was because it was from a long time ago. Charity is better than Social Security as a means for helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Oh my God, don't make me laugh. Seriously, I don't feel like doing a fake laugh again. Strongly disagree. The reality is that charities typically don't have enough power, don't have enough actual. Charities are typically never big enough to actually fill the holes in society's social safety net. The only periods of history where this has actually been true has been periods where the church controlled society, at which point the church was actually kind of the government. Do you see where I'm going with this? Some people are naturally unlucky. I was a Taoist for a long time, so I don't really believe in the concept of luck, but I'm going to say that I agree. Some people have just had the worst shit happen to them through no necessary fault of their own. Although I don't know if that's necessarily called being unlucky or being born in a bad zip code. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Strongly disagree. Just think about it for a second. Whose religious values? Whose religious values we going to instill in the school? I mean, obviously, if you chose a private school, you have to choose. But a public education should not be doing that. All right, finally, a look at sex. Interesting. Very interesting. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. Disagree. Same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. They did say should not, right? Yep. Should not be excluded. So I do strongly agree with that. Gay people, strong, healthy gay couples should be allowed to adopt children. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for adult population. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no way to stop it. You're just going to create a black market, which means it'll just get more abusive, which means it'll just get, I would be very interested in having a conversation about, like, is ethical porn possible? But, like, what we know is that the more illegal porn becomes, the less ethical it becomes. What goes on in a private bedroom between two consenting adults is none of the business of the state. Strongly agree. Strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Okay, I mean, I'm not. I like the punani, so I can't really comment on this, but, like, no one can feel naturally homosexual. Like, what does that even mean? I'm going to go with strongly disagree. I mean, to be fair, I'm not gay, so I don't have that experience. I don't know how natural or unnatural it feels to be gay. It's a weird question. But it does expose prejudice and bias in the people filling it out, though. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I disagree. I mean, obviously there are limitations, and we maybe with the advent of the internet should be thinking a little bit harder about certain aspects of it. But, like, generally speaking, we're at a point where the transparency might actually just be our best safety standard. Let's see where I stand. Okay, it's going to explain left and right and authoritarian. I actually don't necessarily agree with these accesses. Authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, libertarian right. Like I said, their goal is to make everyone think they're a libertarian. Okay, this is funny. Nevertheless, the more nationalistic and authoritarian a party or individual is, the more right-wing they're still labeled. And they have to point that out because technically they put the left and right wing axis on the up and down. So even though technically the more authoritarian you are, the more technically right wing you are, it's technically on the up axis on here. So, like, the more the right is not right wing. Who even thought of this? Conversely, a country may be very right wing, libertarian in its economics, and be authoritarian at the same time. Singapore is a perfect example. All right, examples of authoritarian countries. We have North Korea and China. Actually, that checks out. Although, honestly, they do have some state controls over their capitalism in China, but I would put them closer to the center on capitalism. Saudi Arabia. This is actually interesting that Saudi Arabia is farther to the right. Because technically Saudi Arabia is well, I mean, like Saudi Arabia has some of the highest like government. Maybe it's this far to the right because because for a long time they didn't have taxes. But that's because their state who owns the oil, which is typically considered left economic concept, subsidizes like everything in the country, and they didn't need taxes for a really long time until there was a drop in the profitability of the oil market, and then they had to bring in taxes. So I do think it's interesting they have Saudi Arabia so far to the right economically when they're a country that uses so much government subsidizing of the general population. Uruguay and Switzerland. I don't know about Switzerland. I do not know enough about Switzerland or Uruguay to really comment on this. I do know Switzerland has lots of guns and lots of rules for their guns. Uruguay is currently rated the world's 44th most free economy, leading Latin America, and is light in social freedoms, from gay and lesbian rights to legislation on cannabis. All right, let's look at mine. All right, okay, all right. So it's funny. It put me in this area where there are no examples. Like left libertarian, they have no examples in left libertarian, as far as I can tell. Like over here, all authoritarian are on the right. Here I am over here, which is pretty to the left, I would say. Very libertarian in terms of what they consider libertarian, and I'm very economically to the left. Claim your free political compass certificate. Join 27 characters of your most loved and loathed political figures. Previously charged $5 for issuing the certificate, but this became uneconomical in the light of rising costs of our payment provider with bank. We're now giving it away. If you have paid for certificate in the past, we thank you for your support. Okay, so wait, hold it. Where do I get? I can get off. Wait, do I actually want this? I don't need this. Hold on. I don't need this. I know it's free. Oh, wait, no, hold on. What is printable certificate? Please supply name to be included with the certificate. All right, so yeah, that was me taking a political compass test. It was interesting. By that, I mean, it actually turned out about exactly how I expected it to. I am as left-wing as I thought I was. And I'm left-wing regardless of how stupid the compass test orientation is. Did I have any real takeaways from this? I'm not really sure. There was nothing surprising here. I hope it intrigued you or at least entertained you. Thank you for tuning in to Ruben Uncut. Please follow on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Once again, that's Ruben Uncut. And you can email the show at rubenuncut@gmail.com, which is the least preferred way to contact me. Y'all ain't ever getting my Twitter. It doesn't matter. No one pays attention to my Twitter. I mean X. Whatever. Thank you for listening, tuning in, whatever. Have a wonderful whatever, wherever, whoever, whenever, however you are.